Hi guys, it's Beth here, and I am with this reaction video. And sadly, no, it is not the movie. I'm not gonna react to the movie yet, but I will eventually. But I found something a little more interesting first. So, and remember, I did a reaction video that was by Starbird Dubs, and she made an Undertale comic dub, The Thought movie, but it was like a full movie. Well, if some of you do not know what the Undertale AUs are, I will explain. Personally, what AUs means, it means alternate universes. And there are different versions of Sans, Papyrus, and the rest of the Undertale characters. There's Underfell, Underswap, Aftertale, Reaper Tale, Dream Tale. What others? I've forgotten some of the AUs. So, if you guys. You guys can look it up if you want to, of what are some of the AU names of different versions of Sans and Papyrus and the rest. But people have also been making Undertale AU ships with different versions of Sans. First off, they shipped Underswap Sans with Inktail Sans. If you don't know who Ink Sans is, he's the protector of AUs. And there's another Sans, but his name is Error Sans. He's the destroyer of AUs. And Underswap Sans is a more he's a swapped version of Sans, where Sans acts like his brother, and his brother Papyrus acts like Sans. But the version of Papyrus that acts like Sans, he smokes cigarettes. And Underswap Sans, he's not like the original Papyrus who eats spaghetti. This Sans eats tacos instead. And the swapped version of Papyrus doesn't drink ketchup. He drinks honey mustard. Well, honey, actually. And that Papyrus also makes puns, while the Sans doesn't. And the Underswap Sans calls him the Magnificent Sans, but not Great Papyrus. You can also call him Blueberry, whichever. But his original name is Underswap Sans. But this video was made back in 2019 on May 16th. I saw this full story before, and I absolutely enjoyed it. There will be a sad chapter, but some I think will be sad. And this was voice acted by just another Undertale AU. You guys can go and check her out. She does amazing stories that she voice acts in, and she sings really good. So I think you'll absolutely like some of her stories if you can. And I'll make sure to put her channel name and the link in the description below. And this one is called Blue Ink, Chapter 1, Ink and Error. And you can also find this original story in DeviantArt. So, without further ado, let's start this video in 3, 2, 1, play. I also put the subtitles on, and I won't be talking in this because I want you to hear this. Now let's press play.
Blue Ink by Elizabeth Elizabeth Scarhart and Snowball the Snowflake. Illustrated by Snowball the Snowflake. Narrated by Elizabeth Scarhart. Chapter 1. Ink and Error. Sansa's body hung from the strings that gripped his soul. He'd never felt so helpless, or so stupid. How could he have let himself get tricked like this? He forced himself to calm down. He knew if Papyrus were here, he'd tell Sans it wasn't his fault. Papyrus. Sans didn't know what he'd do if Aaron killed him. He was the only family he had left, and he had warned him. Papyrus had warned him again and again that something seemed wrong about Error, and that Sans should stay away from him. He'd scolded Sans when he snuck off to be with Error. Sometimes the two had full-fledged shouting matches. Papyrus thought Error was trouble, but Sans hadn't been so quick to judge. He thought Error was simply misunderstood. He had been very wrong. Now he hung here. Error had used his friendship for his own gain, and now he had won. Error told him he was going to retrieve his brother. Apparently Pap was willing to trade his life for Sans's, but Sans knew that wouldn't do any good in the end. Error planned to destroy the very universe he lived in. Error planned to make the swamp and then destroy the universe with Sans in it. Sans's only comfort was that Papyrus may be spared, but was that really better?
It's going to be okay,
a voice said. Sans turned to see yet another skeleton, but this one was different. His bones were white, like normal skeletons, and he wore mostly brown, save for a light blue jacket around his waist. On his back was the biggest paintbrush Sans had ever seen. Like him, he had large eyes, and his pupils seemed to change at random.
Who are you?
Sans asked, his voice shaking from how near to tears he was.
A friend.
The skeleton replied.
My name is Ink. I fight to protect the universes Error wants to destroy.
Ink then took his brush and created a large axe that chopped through the strings, freeing Sans. Sans dropped to the ground, and Ink gave him a hand up.
Are you hurt? No. Thanks for saving me. I need to get out of here. I have to save my brother.
Sans looked around, trying to find some exit.
Oh, and in this picture, if you don't know what those vials are that is around Ink's neck, those are his emotions, like angry, sad, happy, disgusted, anxious and scared, or any type of emotion he can feel. And he also doesn't have a soul. Yeah, he is a soulless embodiment of creativity. And he keeps colors of paint in those vials, and that's how he can change his eye. That's how he can change his pupils. And he does feel emotions, but his emotions are as paint, and they're in vials that are around Sans's neck, Ink Sans's neck. But yeah, those vials are his emotions that he keeps in bottles. And he also pukes out paint. So, enough distracting you guys, I mean. Let's get back to this video.
And save him we shall, along with everyone else you care about.
Ink promised. He used his paintbrush to create a large door. He opened it, revealing Snowdin Forest.
After you.
He smiled, waving his hands to the door.
Lead me to your brother, and I'll protect you both.
Sans nodded and went through the door. Ink followed, the door disappearing once they were both back in Sans's universe.
Thank you. My name is Sans, by the way. Nice to meet you.
Ink smiled.
If you don't mind me asking, how come you didn't step in sooner if you were supposed to fight Error? That's why Error kept you around. I couldn't attack while you were defending him. You'd just attack me. I had to wait for you to see his true colors.
Sans snorted.
Did you seriously just make a painting joke at a time like this? Yes.
And in this story, this Underswap Sans also likes jokes too. But the original Underswap Sans hates jokes like the Undertale Papyrus. Just so we're clear. Just in case if you were wondering why this Underswap Sans laughed.
Sans laughed.
You were going to feel guilty if I didn't, and I can't have that happening. This isn't your fault, it's theirs, okay?
Sans nodded and kept leading until the two found Papyrus engaged in battle with Error. He was clearly losing despite his strong attacks. He was on the ground, strings around his soul. Error said in a broken voice.
I can kill you now. Or you can take your brother's place by possessing. What will it be? Stop!
Ink grabbed his brush, approaching the two. Papyrus's eyes met Sans, and relief washed over them both.
Leave this place. I have Sans here. You failed.
Air stared at Sans for a long time. Then his face relaxed.
So it seems. Well. No point in fighting a battle when I've lost all my cards.
He released Papyrus, and Sans ran over to him.
I'll leave. For now.
With that, he disappeared into the antivoid. Ink frowned, putting his brush away.
That was easier than usual.
He watched as Sans helped his brother to his feet. Both seemed shaken but unharmed. Sans apologized profusely, but Papyrus quieted his tears with a hug, telling him all was forgiven. Ink smiled and turned to leave.
Ink, wait.
Ink turned back to see what Sans wanted.
Thank you. You saved us both. Saved everyone. All in a day's work.
Ink replied.
I'm just glad you two are okay. Will I see you again?
Sans asked. Ink thought for a moment.
I think so. You're the first time Error's tried to directly interact with someone to get what he wants. I'd like to keep an eye on you in case it happens again.
He pulled out his paintbrush and created 2 bracelets, handing them to the brothers.
These contain balls of paint. I'll be stopping by every so often, but if you ever need me when I'm not here, just shatter one of those balls on the floor and I'll come. Of course, I'll also give refills as needed as well.
With that, he took his leave. 2 years later. The magnificent Sans smiled as he made his way through Snowdin towards the home he and Papyrus shared. Snow crunched under his boots. It hadn't snowed recently, but the air was icy as ever. Sans didn't mind the cold. As a skeleton, he was very resistant to extreme temperatures. Most of the time, he didn't even notice the chill. Of course, skeletons had their limits, but a simple walk wouldn't bother Sans. He turned the corner and stopped, shocked. Walking down the street, a few feet ahead of him was Ink. Sans' grin widened. He hadn't seen Ink in weeks.
Hey!
He called after his friend and ran to catch up. Ink turned, happy to see Sans. But Sans quickly noticed something was off about his otherworldly self. Namely, he was soaking wet. Even the bristles on his brush were limp and waterlogged. Skeletons may be resistant to the cold, but that was when they were dry. Even a skeleton would be freezing if they were this wet and standing in the snow.
What happened? Havoc in an underwater universe.
Ink explained, acting like it was nothing exciting.
Figured you'd want to hear about it. You always do. I do.
Sans nodded.
But let's get you dry and warmed up first.
He led Ink to his house, and there he got some spare clothes for Ink to change into. Luckily, the two were around the same size and shape. As Ink changed, Sans threw the wet clothes into the dryer and got a spare blanket from the laundry room. He wrapped Ink up and sat him on the couch before making him some hot chocolate.
Thank you.
Ink said, accepting the warm drink from Sans.
I'm feeling warmer already.
He took a sip of the warm, sweet drink and snuggled into the blanket around him.
You're welcome.
Sans plopped down on the couch next to Ink.
So you saved an underwater universe, huh? From art blocks or from Error? Error. He's been really restless lately. It's taken everything I have to keep him at bay.
Ink replied. Sans nodded.
You know you can always come here if you need rest. It's the least we can do after what you did for us. Thanks, but I have my own home.
Ink told him.
I just stopped here first because, well, other than just feeling like it, like I said, you always have so many questions about the other universes I protect. Where do you live anyway?
Sans asked. Ink took another.
Now, this is where Ink Sans explains where he lives. I won't explain any further. He will do the talking. So, back to the video.
Long sip of hot chocolate before replying.
I live in the Antivoid. Well, sort of. I live in a small pocket dimension I created in that place. It's small, but it's nice. I need to remember to tighten the entrance, though. Where'd I put my pencil?
Sans pointed to the one that was in his pocket, and Ink wrote down the required chore onto his scarf.
So what was I saying? Oh yeah, pocket dimension in the Antivoid. That's my home.
And another thing about Ink Sans, he also sometimes forget when he talks about something. And when he pukes out ink, that is only when he gets really excited. And if some of you do not know what the antivoid is, it's a full blank space, like a full piece of paper. And there's nothing there. No houses, no town, no trees, no water, no grass, no flowers, nothing. Well, like he said, he lives in a small pocket dimension. And I won't explain any more further, but if you didn't know what the antivoid was, now you know. So, back to the video.
Wait, you live with Ella?
Sans stared. That didn't sound good at all.
More like we're neighbors.
Ink said, trying to calm him down.
It's okay, you can't hurt me in that pocket.
Sans was about to say more when Papyrus walked back from Muffets. Oh, hey, Ink. Why are you in my brother's clothes? Ink blushed, explaining that his were in the dryer after saving an underwater universe. That'd do it, Papyrus laughed.
They should be dry by now. I can get on my way.
Ink said. He stood up and made his way to the laundry room. Papyrus followed, casually leaning against the dorm frame.
You need something?
Ink asked as he pulled on his shirt. I need to talk to you about my brother. He grinned at Ink's suddenly panicked face. You've had feelings for my brother for over a year now. That's why you're visiting more and more often after fights instead of recharging your powers with creativity. So tell him how you feel. Ink let out a nervous laugh.
Gee, Papyrus. Normally you're really protective of him. I figured you'd be the last person telling me to do that.
Well, if my brother's going to date anyone, it might as well be someone who saved him. I trust you, Ink. You're not going to hurt him. Papyrus told him with a shrug.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Ink grinned awkwardly.
But does he even swing that way?
He swings both ways. You don't have to worry about that, Papyrus assured him. Ink sighed.
I'm running out of excuses. Ironic, really. The embodiment of creativity running out of ideas for something.
He chuckled to himself.
Listen, Papyrus, nerves aside, I'm not sure it's a good idea. I'm not like you two. I'm someone made to go from universe to universe, protecting them and encouraging creative energies within them. And you two are mortals tied to this realm. I don't think a relationship between such beings is a good idea.
Papyrus sighed. Frankly, I don't see why not. But if you need to make sure it's safe, then I understand. This obviously was going to take more than a little push.
Honestly, I believe that. If some of you guys were in Ink and Underswap Sans' shoes, it's always best to make sure that it's safe before you make a serious relationship like that. I mean, who knows what would happen if something like that would be in real life? Who knows? Maybe it could work out in the end, or it could be breakable for the relationship. But yeah, honestly, I don't know if there are such relationship between such beings that are from different dimensions would work out. I mean, it might do something bad to both of their universes, well, the anti-void and the universe, or it could be okay and it could be safe. But it's always best to check and make sure it is safe first. That's what really matters. Always be prepared and always make sure that it's safe. 'Cause it might be trouble for both, especially for both Ink and Underswap Sans.
Ours will figure it out later.
To be continued. All right. Now, we are all done. This was a little long, but I certainly enjoyed this, and I hope you guys did too. And I hope you guys do understand where Ink Sans came from, especially of where he lives. There will be a chapter where he will explain what he really is and where he came from. So you guys will get more information about Ink Sans. And I already did tell you about Underswap Sans and what he is, since you already know Undertale, but you didn't know the Undertale alternate universes. But I told you so you guys could be fully aware. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And like I said, I will put her channel name, Just Another Undertale AU, in the description below so you guys can check her out and watch some of her videos too. If you ever want to make a reaction video of this, you certainly can. I'm sure she doesn't mind. I mean, it was back in 2019, but I don't know. But you guys can certainly make a reaction video of all 9 stories. But there are 10 videos. For the last one, there are 50 facts about Blue Ink. You guys can also watch that too if you want. But there are only 9 chapters to this story for Blue Ink. I do like the ship, but I also like the ship of Ink and Dream, or Ink and Error. There are a bunch of Undertale AU ships that are going on lately. It's been going on like that for years now, ever since Undertale came out as a game, and people have been making comics, movies off of Undertale. They've been making videos of playing the game. Like for certain YouTubers like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, and PewDiePie, other YouTubers that had reacted and played the game. But there are certain people that make Undertale comic dubs in their own different ways, and they're now doing it on Gacha Life and Gacha Club. So many things are going on, and it's like the most... And the Undertale game, well, Undertale itself, is now really famous, too. It's getting popular every second. So is Five Nights at Freddy's, too, but so is Undertale. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye, guys!